a source of production, and everybody to survive would have to either submit to the landowners or sell his or her labor force to the landowners for a fee. So, having said that, it is a common factor that in underdeveloped societies, you find these pre-capitalist values coexisting side by side with capitalism. And to a large extent, it has been argued that these values of primitive communalism and feudalism coexisting with capitalism and in some cases socialism is inimical to development as it propagates underdevelopment on all sides. Take, for instance, the Nigerian system. There are places where feudalism is still practiced. There are places where even slavery is still being practiced, and side by side, capitalism. And we know that one of the high points of capitalism is minimum input for maximum output. So there is no free lunch anywhere. But we have a system in Nigeria and in other underdeveloped countries where you have kings, you have communal leaders that still benefit from the central government without playing any major role in the sustenance of the system. So all these pre-capitalist values coexisting side by side capitalism are antithetical to development, and hence underdeveloped societies are found to be wallowing in abject poverty and penury. It should also be noted that disparity in incomes follow from land ownership, with 70% of the product going to small class of landowners. So you see the contradiction I was discussing about. The landowners will take over 70% by virtue of being landowners alone. And thereby, the remaining 30% is owned by the laborers and the farmers, which to a large extent depicts a clear case of exploitation and inequality. And that does not augur well within a system where all and sundry struggle to actualize the material needs of their existence. The rest of the population lives at subsistence level under acute poverty. Furthermore, in large countries such as India, there also exists disparity of incomes between different regions as the relative factor endowments as well as the level of development vary from region to region. Since an underdeveloped economy is characterized by stagnation in production and operates at a low level equilibrium, savings are low, and so is investment. If you look at these statements, you will be able to discern clearly that further features of an underdeveloped society continues to come up as we make progress. First is the fact that savings is very low, there is inequality, investments at its lowest ebb, social infrastructure varies from society to society, same as Nigeria. For instance, Abuja appears to be developed to an extent. You cannot compare Abuja with the development in, say, maybe Nasarawa State or Benue State or in other rural communities within those regions. So in other words, development exhibits certain disparities that does not conform with the overall standard in urban centers. So to a large extent, these are features of an underdeveloped society. A kind of various cycle operates: low income, low savings, low investment, low capital accumulation, low per capita income, and a host of others. And then the flip side of it would be increased in mortality rates, deplorable social infrastructural conditions, and lack of the basic necessities of life. The majority of the people living at subsistence level have no capacity to save, but engage in conspicuous consumption. Merchants and traders do accumulate some money capital, but they lack in enterprise and do not invest in industry. The other reason for this failure is the large size of capital required by modern industrial units, which individual holders of money capital are unable to provide. Underdevelopment is also characterized by low levels of scientific and technical knowledge. Due to illiteracy and lack of education, the quality of human capital is poor. On the other hand, an underdeveloped economy dependent on the traditional means and methods of production has little scope for technological innovation. So when you look at this again, you would find the argument made earlier on that due to the status of an underdeveloped society, there is low levels of education, low levels of scientific and technical knowledge to transform the economies of these societies into those of the first world. So these challenges abound in many respects, and it is only normal for citizens of this underdeveloped society to look for ways out of underdevelopment and achieve certain levels that would increase the lots of living within these societies. So having said that, summarily, we can say that the characteristics of an underdeveloped economy revolves around the points here made. First is the efficiency of capital. Second is backward techniques of production, backward human resources, underdeveloped natural resources, low per capita income, growth rate of per capita income, low growth rate of per capita income, low levels of living, high rate of population growth, and a host of others. So this list is not entirely exhausted. It is inexhaustible owing to the fact that it replicates itself in endless continuum. So when one talks about underdevelopment, you can see it from every aspect of the societal life of people within an underdeveloped society, which Nigeria is a typical example. Adopted from the work of Dr. Surendra Kumar, World Development Report categorizes economies on the basis of income in three categories. These high income, middle income, and low income economies. Usually, high income countries are known as developed and advanced economies, while low income countries are known as underdeveloped economies. Developed or advanced countries are also characterized by high standard of living, universal and quality education, better healthcare facilities, and high life expectancy. Underdevelopment is low level of development characterized by low real per capita income, widespread poverty, lower level of literacy, low life expectancy, and underutilization of resources, etc., etc. The state is underdeveloped in underdeveloped economy fails to provide acceptable levels of living to a large fraction of its population, thus resulting into misery and material deprivation. So it is only normal for one to understand that, owing to our arguments before now, that development, as argued by Walter Rodney, replicates two sides of the same coin. That while it advances development on one hand, it bridles underdevelopment on the other hand. So where there is deficiency of capital in an underdeveloped economy, it therefore means that the flip side of it would be increased capital in a developed economy. However, these are arguments of dependency scholars or underdevelopment scholars. Remember our discussion on modernization before now that talks about certain standards and practices that are inherent in the economies of underdeveloped society to be the reason why they are underdeveloped. And that for development to be made, they must do away with those values. And even stages of development were mentioned within the arguments of the modernization school of thought. So if one looks at it without theoretical undertones, it is still very understandable that while one side of the world is faced with these challenges of underdevelopment, there is the side that is well developed and the standard of living at its highest levels. So having said that, we would look at